Welcome to another edition of Working with Gen Z. Friends, we've often looked at and spoken about how the work life has changed professionally post-COVID. There's a lot of things that the Gen Z generation is sort of bringing to the employer, whether it's the hybrid, it's managing remote teams, working remotely. But one of the things which has been constantly appearing in a lot of the corporates is the state of their mental well-being. And how can they manage that considering what had happened in COVID? Obviously, we've looked at a couple of episodes. We're looking at how does Gen Z manage things like anxiety and what's the importance of physical relationships, not so much online. And how do we help that generation build and see the importance of relationship? Today, we're going to talk about another facet which is related to mental health for the Gen Z generation, and that is to do with the ability or the lack of it, where we say that, the Gen Z generation probably can get into what's called overthinking. And so we want to see and understand what triggers some of that. How do we overcome it, right? Is this the generation which is probably most susceptible to sort of being overthinking because of the fact that they're surrounded by too much technology and so on? So we'll dive into all of that in great detail. And to help me with that is my guest, Simran Parekh. Simran, welcome and nice to have you.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Fantastic. And so like we do with every guest, we're going to quickly give a short introduction. Simran has asked me to keep it brief. Simran is dedicated and a compassionate mental health therapist with over 4 years of experience. Simran holds a master's in clinical psychology from Gujarat Forensic Science University, which has provided her with a strong theoretical foundation in various therapeutic approaches. She's also well versed in evidence-based modalities such as the CBT, the DBT, which is the cognitive behavior theory, dialectical behavior theory, and mindfulness-based intervention, among others. In addition to providing therapy, she offers peer supervision to aspiring therapists. Additionally, she is involved in content creation through mental health, content webinars, and has been a guest on multiple podcasts. So, Simran, welcome again. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me.
So what else can would you like to share before we dive in? Simran, this is a topic of great curiosity for myself, being a parent to a Gen Z boy myself, and a nephew is of that generation. But anything that you want to share about yourself before we dive into the question? I've read a brief introduction. Would you like to share anything about yourself?
No, that's great. I think your introduction says it all, and it's a great introduction. Thank you for that. And I would just like to add that it's been 4 years into the field, but it still feels like fresh. It still feels like, yes, people do have concerns that they want to work on. And over the years, I've seen that people are more open to mental health, more open to understanding how, important it is to address these issues rather than suppressing their thoughts or feelings. So I'm glad that people are opening up and I'm glad that I'm a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get to that sort of angle of looking at, what are the trends. But let's start, we're talking about overthinking. So help us to first just simplify, at what point do we say someone is overthinking, right? If I have a problem, I'm thinking about it, there's nothing wrong with it. But how do you define what is overthinking, right? And what are some of the most common triggers of overthinking?
Overthinking can be in any form. It could be related to, say, school exams, pressure. It could be related to family issues that you're facing. It could be financial issues. It could be work related also. So if I simplify overthinking, it's basically all of us do think about a certain situation or a certain issue that we are going through. Or say, for example, if we've been through a movie, right? And we enjoyed the movie, we liked the movie, we spoke about it, about how we felt about the movie and how the actors or people involved did in the movie for the times that we are with our friends. But if we take that back to our lives, the next day we again think, oh, I relate to that character or I relate to this character. The situation has come up in my life as well. So we are taking it back. We're taking it too much into our lives where it's not required. It was just a movie for the purpose of your entertainment, or if it's a social cause movie. So understanding that and, being aware of it. So basically overthinking hampers, it's overthinking when it starts to hamper your daily life, daily routine. When it interferes with your work, it doesn't let you focus. It doesn't let you maybe sleep at night. It doesn't let you maybe, pay attention in your work meetings. You zone out usually. So these are the, causes or few signs that you can see if you're overthinking.
So there is one question here, Simran, that oftentimes you read about it, right? A lot of the people who are very successful professionally in any sphere of life, right? You have a problem, they want to achieve a goal, they're thinking about it, and they continuously think about it, right? In the effort to achieve it, right? So let's say I want to climb Mount Everest base camp, right? And therefore, I don't just think about it once and forget about it. I really have to keep sort of reminding myself, or the more I think that how hard this prep is going to be, or the journey is going to be, I have to eat right, I have to exercise right. So at what point, maybe where does that, because it seems the evidence could be that some of that thinking is actually it turns into positive, right? Or maybe it helps you to achieve that goal. So when do we say that overthinking kind of becomes negative, right? At what point?
Great question. I would say I would use your example of this. You're planning to climb Mount Everest. So your planning needs state that what physical structure or what body strength do I need? How do I need to maintain my body or physically be, fit to go on that camp? So that is your planning, and you thinking about that I need to reach a certain weight in a certain point of time. That is your goals that you want to achieve. Say, for example, your end goal is climbing Mount Everest. So there are short-term goals before that as well. You need to have a checkup, maybe. You need to have a fit body. You need to have that strength and energy to do that. You need to have that motivation and willpower to, yes, I need to do that. Extreme weather conditions, you need to prepare for it. So all of that wouldn't come into overthinking. It would come into planning. It's planning for the event. But if we start living that right from today, for example, if I just keep on thinking, will I be able to climb or not? Will I be able to reach or not? Thinking about the outcome, that is overthinking. That causes issues. I wouldn't say negative. I don't usually use the term negative. I would say that causes trouble when you start to think more about the outcome rather than focusing on how can I reach there. So the planning, the process, the journey is important.
Right. Yeah. So for the individuals who tend to do this, right, what is happening? Maybe if you have a simplified way of explaining, not so much, but let's say like kind of at a biological level or at a more brain science level, right? What is happening in the brain? Are the neurons trying to make more connections so that they can, so just explain me if you can explain. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So if I see my clients, what happens is with overthinking comes lack of sleep or sleep disturbances. So they usually say that I am not able to sleep because I'm overthinking about it, because I'm thinking too much about it. So what you are doing, you're activating your brain cells to work, to think about it. And that's the reason that you're not being able to sleep. So if we take biology into this factor, then even if you're not thinking about anything, if you're blank, but you're also at the same time, you're having that thought that, oh, I'm not able to sleep. I am not being able to sleep. I want to sleep, but I'm not able to sleep. So that thought is also there in your mind. So that is also activating your brain cells that, yes, she's thinking something, he or she's thinking something. And that is also activating your brain to work. So ultimately, I know it's not easy to sleep with a blank mind, but of course, thinking too much about anything would lead to difficulties, would lead to not being able to sleep.
Right. Okay. So let's talk now for the Gen Z generation. Their context is obviously very different, right? They're surrounded by technology. They spend, numerous research gives us different data on the amount of hours a typical Gen Z can spend anywhere from 2 to 8 or 10 hours, right? So what in your view is causing that generation, or do you feel that, is that generation probably going through a lot of overthinking? In their context, what would you say is causing overthinking if you feel that's happening?
First of all, I would say overthinking is a concern not only for Gen Z, but everyone. because you're either stressing about, will I clear this interview, will I get this job or not, will I be able to get a proper prospect for marriage or not, will my marriage work or not, will my parents agree or not. So overthinking, if you see, stems right from childhood. If you have that environment in your childhood where you've been pressurized, you need to get certain percentage, say for example, in your academics. So the child is overthinking or thinking too much about the result, thinking what or how will my parents react if I don't get a certain amount of percentage or a certain grade. So that creates the tendency to overthink. Nobody starts overthinking overnight, I would say. It's over the years that it takes place, because you've been in a place where maybe your feelings or your emotions have not been heard, and where you've not got clarity or a clear answer about what's going on around you, your environment, your friends, your family. And if we now come to Gen Z, the main concerns that they overthink about are, I would say, social life, social media, and the tendency or the thought to fit in.
Right.
They just want to fit into a certain circle, and in that, they tend to think too much. I would like to take an example here.
Sure. That'd be great.
For example, if you're going or hanging out in a group of friends and you want to go out for a dinner. So there are 5 people who might say, let's go to a restaurant A, right? But you know that the food there is not that great. But you just, to be a part of that group or to show that, yes, I also belong here, or the feeling of belongingness, you say, yes, okay, fine, we'll go there. But at the end of the day, when you go, you have the food out there, you're coming back home thinking that I knew that the food wasn't great, but why couldn't I say? Why couldn't I, put it out? So that could be one thing that, you should or try to put out your opinions. And second example, I would take that even if you are putting out your opinion, after that also you keep on thinking, what is the other person thinking about me? Will she like it or not? Will they approve of my opinion or not? The fear of judgment is constantly there in today's generation, I would say.
Right. Yeah. Now, would you say, Simran, is there, like you mentioned sometimes back, would you say that overthinking, I mean, is there a positive side to overthinking? In other words, can we say, rather than always overthinking in a negative way, can you say for individuals who manage pressure, right? Again, you go back to athletes, you go back to politicians, you go back to CEOs, right? Obviously, there are stories where they crumble and whatever, right? Maybe it's the pressure, but can you say that, because there's one view perhaps that says that, okay, if you think about it enough, right, it gets you closer to taking action, right? So would you say that that could be a positive to doing a little bit of overthinking, or do you say that overthinking should, in your view, the moment overthinking happens or is happening, you need to be a little more self-aware and work on methods or techniques to stop it? What's your take?
See, I would say it depends from person to person how it's affecting the individual. If you are thinking about, if you have a tendency, for example, to overthink and it's not interfering with your life in any way, whether it is social life, family life, personal life, or work life, if it is not affecting any area, then it's okay. Because maybe that is helping you to look further into the worst case situation and get the best possible outcomes for you in that particular moment. So it depends from person to person whether it, influences or whether it is affecting their life and how it is affecting them. Okay. Usually it does affect only. There are no positive impact of overthinking. But yes, there are exceptions where, you see that they are great planners because they think every situation, they think everything very clearly. But at the same time, they're losing out a lot of time in that process as well.
Okay. So let's talk now a little bit about, Simran, let's say you have a young Gen Z, he or she's spending a lot of time on social media, always on a device. Like you said, there is a certain expectation of the online world, which is carrying forward into their offline world that, okay, I wrote something, someone's liking it. And maybe that same level of expectation is something that they expect in real life from their school, in professional life and so on, right? So, and two questions. Number one, if I'm someone in that generation, perhaps I may or may not even realize that I am becoming prey to overthinking. So first of all, let us help our viewers to understand how can one get aware that maybe I'm in this trap or I'm this vicious circle. That's number one. And second, how do we overcome it?
Okay. So your first addressing your first question, how you can recognize whether you're overthinking or whether you are someone who's leading there. First of all, you stop giving your opinions. Maybe you start, and even if you're giving your opinion, you think too much about it. Like, for example, if you, I think giving an opinion becomes difficult. You become more indecisive because you're thinking too much. Whether should I go for a movie A or a movie B? So when someone asks you which one is better, you would either give a diplomatic answer that, oh, both are nice or both are good. I found both were equally well. I don't know which one would you like, because there's a fear that how the other person will judge your choice or think about you basis even on a small movie recommendation. So either that could happen, or you would give a very clear and a detailed understanding of, oh, movie A has so and so characteristic, this is the storyline, this is how it turns out to be, and movie B has these all characteristics and this is how it turns out to be. So you can decide for yourself. Again, very, very indecisive. So overthinkers usually are indecisive because they are confused.
Right.
When you calm down, you feel confused. You feel that it's better if someone else tells me what decision to take. If someone else would tell me, go have this for dinner or go have this for a week or you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, they'll be more comfortable with that.
Right. Okay. So one is perhaps just, I wouldn't know, I want to say lack of confidence, but maybe they don't have clarity upon or it's too much and they're not sure which way to go. And that can lead into saying maybe this, maybe that, maybe this, something else. Right. Okay.
Because just adding on, there's a lot of mental fog because there are 10,000 thoughts running together in their mind due to the, overthinking. They feel that they are helpless actually because they feel their mind is not at rest and they are not being able to do anything about it. So so they feel helpless. They feel that I am not able to control my thoughts. I want to stop, but I don't know how. So a feeling of helplessness, a feeling that there are 10,000 thoughts that creates mental fog, which leads to, clouding the judgment. So they are unable to decide eventually.
Right. Okay. So now the big question, if I am having this habit of overthinking and so how do I overcome it, right? What are the steps and how, what's the process? What could be the duration? What are the ways in which we can kind of stabilize and make it a little better?
First, I would say recognize your triggers, whether it is overthinking or any other concern. To recognize your trigger is the most important step. How you can recognize your trigger is start noticing when are you trying to zone out or when do you zone out. Is it in a work meeting? Is it in a school lecture? Is it while having in a social gathering, having a conversation? And which thought is making you zone out? Like, I know it is very minute details, but if you can try and start noticing your triggers or maybe how many times you zone out in a day and what do you usually think about when you're zoning out, that matters a lot because usually people are either thinking about their past and what has happened or what they've been through or, about the future. How will I reach there? What is going to happen? So first is knowing your triggers. Then once you're aware of your triggers, start on how can I deal with it? How to overcome my triggers? So of course, professional help is there. But apart from that, if you want self-help, you can try a technique called worry time. So what you do there is basically take out 10 to 15 minutes on a daily basis. Sit down, write down all the thoughts that you've had throughout the day. So this is typically to do it towards the end of the day. And throughout the day, whenever you have those thoughts, for example, you're sitting for breakfast and you zoned out. So initially it will be really difficult, but gradually with practice, you will develop a conscious effort of telling yourself, pause thinking, stop thinking. I have assigned a separate time for my thoughts. So what you're doing just will help you reduce your overthinking And secondly, because maybe by the end of the day, you might forget what you were thinking about in the morning. And secondly, it will also help you understand that you're not ignoring or suppressing those thoughts. You're validating them by giving them a separate time. So you're giving those thoughts importance as well.
So at what point, so I mean, you mentioned that, let's say if I kind of start journaling at the end of the day, right? But the day could be packed with many things, right? How do I kind of see a pattern, right? Maybe I thought about something because I have an upcoming meeting at 9 o'clock. Then once that's done, I don't think about it. But then there's another presentation at 11. So I start thinking about that. So, how do you kind of see that there is a pattern? In other words, how do you know distinctively that there is overthinking about something rather, right? You could be just thinking about like your next thing, versus like in your idle time, you're thinking about, okay, well, I have, that interview coming up, or I have that coming up, right? So I'm just trying to understand, just to make that technique a little more relatable, right? What are the ways in which people do that, or we should keep in mind?
Right. See, overthinking usually happens for some event or something that has a duration, like it is a week away, or 3 days away, or a month away. Because you usually wouldn't think too much about what you have to do next tomorrow. If you have a meeting tomorrow, you might think, how will the presentation go? You won't think about the meeting is at 9 a.m. or the meeting is what the meeting is about. You will think about your part in the meeting.
Right.
So you'll be thinking mostly about something that's far apart. So to maintain that worry time on a daily basis, it also helps to reduce these events. And when you mention that, on a daily basis, how does this take place? It's more of nervousness than overthinking. It is more of lack of confidence, as you mentioned, that will I be able to do this or not? So what I suggest is initially they could, use screensavers or posters like stop thinking or pause thinking, so that it can use as a signal for their mind to, yes, I need to stop. And you can set up reminders on a daily basis for, say, for example, if you're sitting at 7 in the evening for this worry time journaling, 7 to 7:15, put a daily reminder and you can go ahead with that. Therapy is a slow process. It takes time. So, of course, you will need some efforts in that.
Yeah. So in your experience, Simran, you do clinical work. What have you seen? Have you come across someone who may have been on one extreme of overthinking, right? And how did you help him or her? Or is there a duration that it took or it can take? And then what are the ways in which you can make the person go from point A to point B, where they say that, I feel a little more in the moment. I'm not worrying about the future or the past, right? So do you have anything that you can share just by way of example, like, or what a typical journey could be like?
Sure. So, if I take today, the clients that I see, mainly their concerns are related to relationship or work-life imbalance.
Mm-hmm.
These are the two major topics where people are facing concerns. Of course, there are other topics also, but these two cover the main, area. And if we take any one of them, they are usually stressing about, as I mentioned earlier, the future.
Mm-hmm.
What will happen next? Or if it's regarding a recent breakup or a divorce, it's about be past. How would they move on, or will they find someone else or not? So first, I help them with this technique, which is I mentioned Bible time, which helps them to jot down their thoughts. Usually, what happens, we start thinking, we do our thinking mentally. So we start at point A, we move to point B, C, and point Z maybe, and then all of that it gets all messed up, and then leads to stress, anxiety, or maybe, a feeling of restlessness. But if you write it down, you have direction, you know where you started, and you can come back to that point. So and what happens in today's time, nobody's ready to hear your issues. They do hear, but they don't empathize. Mm-hmm. Maybe they don't understand. So the conversations today have also become more like just listening and replying. It's not listening, understanding, and then reverting.
Right.
So that, and then after that worry time, once they have channelized their thoughts, once they've understood their thoughts, rational thinking is the next step, which helps them realize that, do I really need to think about this in this present moment? How is this benefiting me? What are the consequences of this thought on my emotions, on my current state? So rational thinking is the next step, where we take up thoughts and we sit and help the client understand that maybe this thought is not rational right now, maybe this is rational right now, so we should focus accordingly. But yes, I do not invalidate any thought or emotion, because I feel whatever they are feeling or thinking is valid because it comes from within. So emotions, thoughts are definitely valid. The only question is whether it is rational or not, because rationality is the main point. So here comes another technique, which is mindfulness, to be in the here and now, to be aware of your surroundings. So there's a lot of things that we can club together to help with overthinking.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And so now in the context of workplace, and maybe the Gen Z population kind of straddles from school to colleges, but the focus of our episode is more work related, right? So if I'm a boss, right, if I'm a manager and I am a young Gen Z or Gen Zer who's probably just first time stepping into the professional world, and all of a sudden he or she's overwhelmed, overthinking, okay, I have to perform, I have to do this, that, right? If I'm a manager, right, as you said, empathy is a big, I think, but, and, assuming that, you have a manager who's himself or herself fairly self-aware about what's happening, what can they do? How can they see the signs of this, and how can they help? So let's start from the work context, where someone is always overthinking, stressed out, right? Are there signals in which they can see this, and how can they help?
Definitely. So you can notice your colleagues around yourself. Procrastination is a major thing that happens. Your work gets delayed. You're not being able to focus on your work. You feel like, I don't want to go to job. Every morning you wake up, it feels like a task that, you have to go. And within conversations, if there's a meeting being held, you see that if you're asking that question, that person is lost. If you're zoned out, it shows on your face. So zoning out is, I think, the out. If you see the exterior, you can only see zoning out as one of the issues that come with, or signs that come with overthinking. Other could be the laid back attitude. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week. I don't feel like doing. Just delegating the work to someone else, or feeling least interested in the project or the activity, or you can also see difference in their performance. So the employees working for a longer period of time, you can see their performance getting deteriorated. You can see that from their behavior patterns also, like they start becoming silent towards themselves, lonely, sitting aside by themselves, not interacting much with others. They are in their own thoughts. So these are few things that you can notice.
Right. Okay. Now, if this is curbed and spotted and obviously addressed at the right time, obviously that's good. But I'm sure that there are people who lived with this habit, or who lived with this syndrome or whatever, right, till for a good part of their lives, perhaps not realizing, or even realizing but not doing anything. So what's the long-term effect of this, right? Is there any potential downside? Does it impact your how can it impact you both mentally and what's the sort of ripple effect, if you will?
So much overthinking or long-term overthinking can lead to anxiety, because then you start doubting, or start questioning on every small thing. Why is my son or daughter late at home? Why is my boss not responding? Why am I not getting a reward back from a job application? Why my partner is not responding to my text? Does he love me? Or he doesn't love me? Whether I'll be able to do this job or not? Do my friends like my outfit for today or not? So these are very small things if you see. But if overthinking is prolonged, it does show up in your daily life as well. The food I prepared, will people like it or not?
Right. Yeah. So it kind of just it becomes a vicious circle, which stays with you, and it carries forward and kind of becomes part of their persona. Now, if you're a Gen Z, Simran, what advice would you give them? Right? Obviously, we're talking about all the things that people can see from the outside or on the other side. Like, let's say I'm listening to this and I'm saying that, okay, what can I do, perhaps from a preventive point of view, or just making myself more self-aware? So what advice would you have to the Gen Z to see that if you're not falling into the overthinking trap, so what are the signs? Yeah, how can we help them?
See, today I would say most of us are overthinking about something or the other. It's become a part of our life where it doesn't even affect us much. So it's become like, for example, if you're having a cough and cold, it's going to be fine by 2 or 3 days, so no need for medication. So we've then, like, if it's a viral or a fever, we will go and have a medication. So only if it is hampering at an extreme level, you go for a professional help. But you can, of course, understand that, you are different. Each individual is different. You don't have to always, be a part of the group. I'm not saying that you stand up and become a rebel. No, we don't need to do that. But we can always put our opinions out. So that will help us be more satisfied with ourselves. We won't come back home regretting that I didn't put my opinions forward, or I wasn't able to share this. And then overthinking begins when you're not able to share your stuff. It begins only when or you're thinking too much about the future. So rational thinking will help you be in the present moment. Mindfulness can help you being in the present moment and help you reduce overthinking. And secondly, be confident in yourselves, in who you are. You do not need to be someone else or try to adapt to skills or capabilities that others have. You are a different individual. You have your own skill set. So you should be confident. If you are not confident in yourself, nobody else will be.
Right. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's a matter of perspective. So if you see a situation from a point of view where you feel very confident, and you feel that, okay, this is the way I see the situation, it's okay. Maybe someone else could have a different point of view. There's no harm in having different point of view.
You make one good point here, Simran. I just want to quickly just double click this. You said that overthinking can sometimes happen when you're unable to share. And I always say that, okay, for the Gen Z generation, their view or definition of sharing is perhaps very different than maybe other generation, right? Where they're probably sharing much more than anyone else in the online world, right? But may not be able to do that, sitting next to a friend who's actually right next to them, talking to them, right? So what advice do we give them there? It's slightly different, but just so that the overthinking is curbed, right? Do you sense that, okay, maybe they identify one or two people, and this could be true for everybody in our life, right? Where we say that, okay, do we have at least two good friends, or do we have our parents or our siblings or whoever, where maybe when we share, some of that's always circling in our head gets an outlet. Yeah.
You make a great point that yes, today's generation is sharing too much, but they're not sharing their real feeling over emotions.
Yeah.
If you see that if you are putting out a post about IPL, you'll see 10 of your friends putting the same post. So it's, again, being a part of the herd, being a part of the group. So you're just posting things that people will find good, that people will appreciate, that people will approve of. What about your feelings? So internally, you're feeling something else. Internally, what you're feeling, that very rarely people come and share. So I do have so many clients who belong to this generation who say that we have a lot of friends, but we have nobody with whom we can share this. So the point of social media, I wouldn't say it's just social media. It's just become that, I can't share what I really feel with anyone because maybe I don't know whether they would understand or not. They would, how they would take it. And secondly, will this, break the friendship with me, or what will their perspective be about me if I share my problems? Will they feel that I am weak? So nobody wants to become vulnerable in today's time.
Right. Yeah, I think it defeats the purpose. I think it's more driven by, will I be liked? What will be my perception? Will I get X number of likes? Will I get certain number of comments? And that will be way of saying that, I've really made a good post, right? As opposed to actually writing, what's on your mind and what are you grappling with. Okay.
Okay.
So fantastic. Simran, any last piece of advice, both again from a workplace and also Gen Z, right? Kind of maybe just like as a way to sum up our episode, like some do's and don'ts for anyone who's listening, right? Some basic do's and don'ts of overthinking, right? What's that magic formula that you want to kind of share?
I would say if you're overthinking, go one step at a time. Having goals, having plans is not something that's wrong. Do plan ahead, of course, but then don't live in the plan. Don't live in the plan, live in the process. If your end goal is reducing X number of kgs or, being in a certain designation in the certain year, fix that goal. And then start working towards how can I reach there? How can I reach to reduce 10 kgs or how can I reach to a certain designation? Set smaller steps below that and then take one step at a time. What generally happens is we want to do everything at once. And then that leads to a mess and we are not being able to give 100% to anything. And then when we are unable to finish that, then overthinking, self-doubt begins that, oh, I'm not good enough. I can't do anything. So yeah, that's take one thing at a time.
Okay. Okay, so one last question. Where can our listeners or viewers find information about you? Are there books that you recommend people should read? And certainly any resources about yourself if they need to get in touch with you for any help, both generally or professionally?
Yeah, you can reach out to me. I have a website on Linktree. I'm on Instagram by the name Therapy by Simran. I am on YouTube with the name Therapist Simran Parekh. So you can reach out on my social media or on my LinkedIn as well. And there are various books, and I'm sure I have many clients who recommend me books. So I'm sure all of them are aware. A good one would be Atomic Habits of Life, which helps us understand how, you can conduct your daily life. So that's something that you can maybe read.
Okay. Well, this has been one very helpful conversation, Simran, something which is so much, there's a lot of curiosity about this, topic of overthinking is something that we perhaps all of us at different generations portray. So it's very good to understand very simply what it means, how do we overcome it, what are the triggers. And I hope that every single one of our listeners, the Gen Z generation in particular, can listen to this episode and get good advice that you give. All right. Thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing you sometimes in person when you're visiting back at your home state. All right. Take care and see you soon. Bye.